The Nebraska legislature adjourned last week. During the first session of the 104th legislature, Nebraska's Unicameral adopted 2 livestock development proposals, along with another bill giving producers agro-tourism liability protection. It failed, however, to pass a bill on custom hog feeding in the state. Earlier this week, Nebraska Extension Ag Law Specialist Dave Aiken joined us to recap the session.
LB 106 was the one that dealt with zoning requirements, and that one was changed quite a bit in the legislative process, but the other bill, LB 175, which increases tax breaks for livestock development, that one did go through.
Let's talk about LB 106. Explain to me what LB 106 would do.
Well, originally it was going to come up with what the bill called a matrix, or basically a list of zoning factors that the state would establish that counties then had to follow in considering new livestock development proposals. This turned out to be very controversial with counties, and so there was considerable opposition to that, and they ended up making it voluntary rather than mandatory.
Explain more of why this thing overall was controversial.
Well, you know, in a lot of counties, not every county, but a lot of counties, you know, livestock development is controversial, whether it's concerns about groundwater or odors or something like this. And even though the County Officials Association had testified in favor of it, there are enough local county officials who were against it that really carried the day, and there was no support for the bill, very little support for the bill as was originally proposed.
Let's move on to LB 175. What will that do?
Well, it makes some funding available to livestock-friendly counties, the 29 livestock-friendly counties that we have in Nebraska, to do some infrastructure development, roads and stuff like that. In addition, it raises the state tax credit for new livestock development from $30,000 to $150,000, which means as much as you could get 10% off for a new livestock development up to $1.5 million.
So those are the 2 livestock bills that went through. Now, a couple months ago, we talked about another one. It was LB 176. What happened to it?
Well, that's the bill that would have authorized packer feeding in Nebraska, and that is that packers could own swine and then have those swine custom fed under contract. And that's a very controversial issue as well, raises the issue of corporate farming and stuff like that. And Senator Schills had the votes to pass it, but he didn't have the votes to break the filibuster. They got 31 votes, and they needed 33 votes to break the filibuster, so he came up 2 votes short.
Why was it so tight? Why was it so contested?
Well, I think it's kind of the old Initiative 300 corporate farming stuff back again, and the concern that this is going to be a corporate takeover of the swine industry. Other folks, the supporters, say, well, look, if we want these packers to stay in Nebraska to make the market for Nebraska, then we've got to give them flexibility to be able to make sure that they're going to have the supply that they need.
One of the other agriculture bills that went through or related to was the Agro-Tourism liability bill. Explain that one to me.
Well, outdoor recreation is getting to be a more significant economic activity in Nebraska. Actually, tourism is the 3rd largest industry in Nebraska. I didn't know that. And so, hunting and fishing and, all sorts of outdoor recreation activities, things that people like to do. Farmers and ranchers, if they let people come on their land and they don't charge them anything, then they have a limited liability protection that if the people get hurt, 99 times out of 100, the landowner's not going to be responsible. But if they charge a fee, then it's like they're going onto commercial premises, and they are and they have a much broader liability exposure there, and so that's the issue. So
what is LB3? This is LB 329. What does this do specifically?
Well, this is something that rural groups have wanted for a long time. Basically, it gives farmers and ranchers and other rural landowners the opportunity to have people come onto their property, but they get a limited liability protection if something goes wrong. And the basic idea is that when you're out in the country, out on the farm, you're not in a park in town or something like that. You're out in the wilds, so to speak, and so there is some risk of simply being out in the wilds, and that's the risk that the bill seeks to protect the landowner from.
Dave says the agritourism liability is not unlimited. Operators are liable if they don't do things like post warning signs, properly maintain premises, and fail to train employees.